Who's in this
Yeah.
picture here? This is King of Kings.
Yeah, that's supposed to be Jesus according to Revelation 1. They go to Revelation 1 to try to show that Jesus would be described as somebody who is a black Israelite.
Interesting. So, and I'm sure if anyone ever just tries to bring up the common sense question of why you got to be black, or just why does skin tone have to matter at all? What their answer is, we got charts of genealogy.
No, they wouldn't say that. They would say two things, I think. The first would be more rhetorical. Oh, well, if it didn't matter so much, then how come all your forefathers were drawing all those white pictures of Jesus for centuries?
Right.
If it didn't matter, why are you guys putting all these white Jesuses all over Europe and all over America? But now it matters. Now it doesn't matter. But I thought it mattered.
You've seen Korean Jesus, though, right?
That's what they would say. They'd say, well, was Korean Jesus in the Passion of Christ? Was Korean Jesus in Jesus of Nazareth? Was Korean Jesus in the famous Head of Christ picture? No, it wasn't Korean Jesus. White Jesus is sort of the order of the day. You know it. Don't act like it's something else.
I mean, yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. In like European countries in North America. But I mean, like if you go to South Korea, they have a picture of Jesus and he looks Korean.
Well, of course, no one has a picture of Jesus, right?
Identification. I mean, exactly. But I'm saying, like, that's how they culturally identify their faith with Christ, is they literally have a Korean Jesus. It's pretty laughable.
Well, let's say
because we don't know what he looks like.
If I'm a Hebrew Israelite and you said that, I say, so what? Jesus is white and Korean? Which one is it? What is he?
Right. Yeah. Just
so
they
ignore one.
The common sense aspect of, all right, so each culture is going to represent Jesus according to how they're most familiar with their populace. And
so then you're worshiping another Jesus.
So then they just think it's basically a race thing.
Well, they would say that the Bible tells us two things. Number one, it tells us what men from the tribe of Judah look like. And if that's Jesus's ancestors, he's got to look like him. Number two, the Bible describes Jesus in Revelation 1. Now, both of those things are incorrect, but that's what they would say. And so, for example, they would go to Jeremiah 14:2 to try to prove that the men of Judah are black. Now, some of the groups have dropped this. Actually, I say some of the groups. I probably shouldn't use the plural. One group I know has dropped Jeremiah 14:2 as a proof text. And the reason is because they realized it was wrong. Why did they realize it was wrong? Because Christian apologists have been pointing out to them that there's a problem, because they use the KJV when they do the Jeremiah 14:2 thing.
Yeah.
But if you look at it in the modern translation, it will say something different. Jeremiah 14:2 says, Judah mourns, her gates languish, her people lament on the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem goes up. That's the ESV. And the KJV, it says, they're black unto the ground. And they'll say, look, it's talking about the people of Judah. Yeah, do you got it in the KJV? There you go, there. See, yeah. Black unto the ground. Then what they'll say is, this is talking about the people of Judah. The people of Judah are black like the ground. So if Jesus was from the tribe of Judah, is he going to look different than his ancestors here? Now, here's the reason some of the groups, well, one of the groups, has realized it's a problem. I'll show you what it is.
Instead of attributing the context of this whole passage to the term black unto the ground, meaning they're destroyed and burned, and just like the city was destroyed and burned.
Yeah,
Instead of attributing the judgment, they think it's talking about skin color.
Yeah, I mean, just think about this for a second. You know, it's like if you start in verse 1, it says, the word of the Lord came to Jeremiah concerning the drought. So the context has to do with the judgment that's happening there in Jerusalem. And the word of the Lord comes and it says, Judah mourns. So they're crying because of what's happening. Her gates languish, so that the city is sort of personified there. I mean, the idea is all of her people. Her people lament on the ground, or in the KJV, of course, black into the ground, and the cry of Jerusalem goes up. And then it goes on and talks about them looking for food and water and stuff. So
right.
It'd be weird if the prophet's like talking about this, and he's talking about the anguish and the travail, right? The lament. Right. And then all of a sudden he's like, by the way, they're black. So that's not what he's doing. In fact, what is he doing? What's happening? Well, why is it translated different in the new translations? Well, they would provide a conspiracy theory for you, right? They would be like, oh, look, well, it's a conspiracy theory because you know, they're mistranslating it, right? That's what they would say, right? Well, it's the word in the ESV that's translated as a lament, and the KJV it's translated as black. It's the same word in Hebrew. It's kadar.
Yeah.
Well, kadar means to mourn or to grieve. And here's the thing, it's a verb. It's not a noun. It's not an adjective. So it's not describing them. It's not giving a color to somebody. It's a verb. So it's an action word. Or the people lament on the ground. That's why the modern translations have it better here, where they have it like this. But even if you don't like the modern translation, how did the KJV get black into the ground? Because black is an old English way to say mourn or lament. You can look up dictionaries that will say he was black, and it's referring to mourning. So the reason why they translated that is they didn't get it wrong. They were trying to say what it does say.
Yeah.
They're just describing the lament of the people. And when you look it up in Hebrew, it's really a case closed. It's a verb. Well, if you're saying that somebody is black as in the way they look, that's not a verb. But in Hebrew, it's a verb. Why? Because the people are doing something. What are they doing? They're lamenting. That's what's
Right.
unto the ground. So it's not saying that they're black like the ground. It's just not what it's saying. It's a verb. It's saying that they're on the ground lamenting. And it makes perfect sense. So that's one that they would go to, though. But see, if a guy's on the mic and you can't speak back, or you don't know this, you don't know off the top, why does it say that? Well, it's because it's kadar. It's a verb. It means lament. Old English way to say that is black. That's a whole thing, right? But they just boom, 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 and then they're on to the next one. And then at the end, they're like, I just showed you 3 verses that prove Jesus is black. Now what?
Right.
So that's that kind of thing, because there's other verses as well that they would go to. They actually call them the color scriptures.
Wow.
Color scriptures. And a lot of Hebrew Israelites who aren't even the militant ones, they would use these as well. These are common proof texts to try to prove that Jesus and his people are a certain way. What's funny about it is, though, a lot of modern Hebrew Israelites, if you call them black Hebrew Israelites, they are offended. They don't like it. They say, no, we're just Hebrew Israelites. We're just Israelites. Don't put that on us. Don't say that. But yet here in the KJV, when they go to Jeremiah 14:2, all of a sudden now it's okay. There's a lot of double standards that happen when you talk to these folks. And that's just one of them. Revelation 1 is the same thing. You go through and look at it. It's a symbolic representation of Jesus and his glory and his majesty. It's not saying this is how Jesus looked when he's walking around Jerusalem. All you got to do is read the context and you see, but they love it. They love it, and they've been using it for over 100 years. Yeah. Starting here, we're going down a little bit right there. Okay, so verse 12 of Revelation, here's what it says. Then I turned to see the voice that was speaking with me. Having turned, I saw 7 golden lampstands. Among the lampstands was one like the Son of Man. So Christians who know the Old Testament will know, okay, that's Daniel 7, but they also know Jesus referred to himself as the Son of Man. But they would notice the symbolic elements right away. He's standing in the midst of 7 golden lampstands. Jesus didn't walk around Jerusalem on a Friday, a Thursday night with 7 golden lampstands around him, right?
That's right.
So that's
and just
important.
Doesn't the following chapters tell you the lampstands represent the churches?
Yes, dressed in a long robe. And by the way, that's important because where it's not clear from the Old Testament context what it might be, it tells you what it is. Where the Old Testament allusion is more clear, it actually doesn't. John doesn't translate he doesn't interpret all symbolic elements in there, but some are to let you know this is symbolically describing things, and the other ones have clear Old Testament allusions. So we don't have to guess about what it is. And it's not describing his ethnicity, it's describing his royalty and his majesty. Among the lampstands was one like Son of Man, dressed in a long robe with a golden sash around his chest. This is describing the kingly state of Jesus. Some people would emphasize priestly state. Both could be true. I tend to lean towards more kingly aspects here. Verse 14, the hair of his head
how I would
was...
lean, right?
Huh?
You know how I would lean, right?
No.
Be the priestly aspect in a white robe, ministering in the Father's house.
Yeah, all those are fine. You'll find commentators that go either way for various reasons. And it really has to do with the way the words are described, the specific garments, and the way that they were be used in relationship to that. So the golden sash is kind of a key element with that, and looking into it to see, okay, whose garment is this describing? What type of garment is this describing? It's an interesting discussion to have. But check this out. They go to verse 14. That's usually where they start this discussion. They usually don't even give you 12 and 13. The hair of his head was white like wool. Okay. How white was it? It was white. White like what? Like wool. Oh, so his hair was white. They take it as this is describing the texture and the color. They'll
Gotcha.
say, who else on this planet has woolly hair? Only the so-called black man. Therefore, Jesus was a black man. But how do you know it's just describing the color? Because the very next line helps you. It says, as white as snow. So John here gives us two things that it's white like. The hair of his head was white. It was white like snow. It was white like wool. It was white. Oh, so now we know the color of his hair, representing wisdom, and also showing sort of this almost luminescent Jesus. Because if you look, the whole passage describes him sort of in fiery luminescence type terms. Watch this. Hair of his head was white like wool, as white as snow, and his eyes were like a blazing fire. It's an Old Testament way to describe the judgment of God, and Jesus has these eyes. His feet were like polished bronze refined in a furnace. Okay. Now in the KJV, if you could we should look at it in the KJV. They're going to be in the KJV most of the time, and the verse 15 is translated in a way that they like better. They're in Revelation 1 with in relationship to the feet element, because they get out of it the color of his feet, where it says his feet were like unto fine brass. I'll say, what color is brass? Oh, it's like brown. Also, he had like brown feet, and then it says as if they burn in a furnace. So if something burns, what is it? Oh, it's black. So his feet were black. They were brown. They were dark. So clearly, he's got to look like this all over his body. But if you look at it, what's it say? His eyes were like a flame of fire. His feet like unto fine brass, as if they burned in a furnace. If you look up the Greek tense there, it's not saying burnt. It's saying they are burning.
Right, on fire.
That's what and you can even tell in the English, as if they burned, meaning they're currently burning in a furnace. So it's the glow. This is a very Old Testament way to describe God. His voice is a sound of many waters. Same thing with that. Yahweh's voice is described in that way. This kind of almost like, imagine, Niagara Falls. What do they do with that? They say that's the baritone voice of the so-called black man.
Dear Lord.
And he had his right hand 7 stars. They never make that far because there it's clearly symbolic. Oh, 7 stars. What ethnic description is that, guys? Out of his mouth went a sharp two-edged sword. What ethnicity has swords coming out of its mouth? His countenance was as the sun shineth in his strength. Now, when we get to the sun one, it's interesting because we're like, well, wait, what is that? Is he yellow? Is he white? Now, because that's not what it's about. That's not what it's giving us, right? Because what's interesting else in verse 14 in the KJV, going back right there on the screen, it says his head and his hairs were white like wool. So 2 things. His head, it's giving 2 separate things there, head and hair. So are we saying that his head also has the texture of wool? No, both his head and his hairs are white like wool. So the British Israelites actually used to go to this verse and say, look, Jesus' head was white, therefore he was white. So they used it the other way. So it just shows
that ancient wigs.
Yeah, not exactly, but you never know what you get. So this just shows that these are the kind of verses you'll get. This is actually one you might get right away. This is a pretty common one, because if somebody says, oh, we don't know how Jesus looked, they'll be like, yeah, we do. Give me that Revelation 1:14. Give me that Revelation 1:15. And then, of course, when you look at it and go through the whole context, it tells you in verse 20, as for the mystery of the 7 stars, so it's revealing what was in the passage earlier. You saw in my right hand and the 7 gold lampstands. The 7 stars are the angels of the 7 churches, and the 7 lampstands of the 7 churches. So this is saying, here's the interpretive grid for these. The rest are clearly Old Testament allusions. And this is a way that Jesus portrayed in his majesty, his royalty, his glory. Has nothing to do with his ethnicity. And even if it did, it doesn't work for them because they're not getting the passage right. It doesn't say woolly hair. And so this is one place they would go. There's some others as well, but this is one place they would go. And it's kind of crazy if you think about it. Check this out. Let's just say this is saying Jesus was a so-called black man. That doesn't prove that any given Hebrew Israelite practitioner is an Israelite.
That's right. Yeah.
Oh, this would prove this is how Jesus looked, but it doesn't prove you're an Israelite.
Right. They just based on skin tone. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a whole problem, but there's, they sort of connect dots without connecting the dots. And unfortunately people fall for it because they are like, "Oh, I've never seen that passage. I didn't know Jesus looked like this. He looks like me. I look like him. He's an Israelite. I'm an Israelite." And so it's one of the places that they get people swept in